Welcome to the stage, Conservation X Labs board member, Hartman.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be with you today. As the voice of God said, my name is Hartman. I'm a proud member of the board of Conservation X Labs. I'm also director of ESG, Environmental Social Governance Strategy at KKR, which is a large finance firm. But I'm not here to talk about either of those things today. I'm also not here to talk about artisanal small-scale mining, a topic on which I am likely the least qualified person in the room. What I'm here to talk about today are some lessons that I've learned in the business of change-making, of social entrepreneurship, and of problem-solving. So for me, there we go. My journey for conservation began on this beach in 2004. I had just finished my junior year of college at Columbia. For those of you who don't know, Columbia has this thing called the core curriculum. And the core curriculum is basically 2 years worth of classes in your 4-year undergraduate career where you have to take everything from philosophy to literature, art, music, writing. You also have to take 3 science classes, which to me was absolutely terrible. And so like the entrepreneurial liberal arts schemer that I was, I decided that I was going to instead apply for this 8-week program in the jungles of Brazil, thinking that it would be fun and it would be easy and maybe I'd, drink caipirinhas and meet a hot Brazilian and fall in love. Only some of that happened. But in between collecting soil samples and counting lichen, I did fall in love, and not just with the hot Brazilian, but with nature. This was the first time in my life that I had truly been surrounded by nature, that I had been immersed in her, in awe of her, overwhelmed by her. And this time in Brazil profoundly changed me. It began for me a love affair with wild places. It would take me to being thrown off of a horse in Inner Mongolia, to being bitten by sand fleas in the Sahara. I would go and work in the Valley of Quito, affectionately known to us expat locals as the ass crack of the Andes. I would go all over the world in search of adventure and wild places. And I bring this story up because I think it's really important for all of us in the room to remember that we can't just tell people why they should care. Sometimes we have to show them. And that storytelling is a really important part of conservation. Bringing people along, knowing your audience, opening doors, and hoping like hell that people walk through them with you. I also share this because in the age of Dr. Google, a little bit of information makes us all experts. And in fact, that is far from the truth. Exposure does not create an expert. As I can tell you from this next moment in my life when I was living and working in Paris at the International Labor Organization. So I had had a few classes and been in a few conference rooms where all of a sudden I thought that I was an expert on child labor. And the thing that I knew was that child labor was bad and that it must be stopped. But I didn't at the time have perspective. I didn't realize what exactly child labor looked like in the field. So when I graduated from my master's degree with a newly minted piece of paper and the recession hit, I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to go and move to Ecuador as one does, and I'm going to work on this thing that I know so much about, child labor. And I get to Ecuador, and within days, everything that I think I know about this subject is completely and utterly thrown on its head. I quickly learned that children must work in many, many parts of the world, and that this idea that abolishing child labor would mean uniforms and playtime and textbooks was completely wrong. Abolishing child labor would mean deepened poverty. It would mean increased vulnerability. It would mean upheaval of families and of economies. And so I learned that this idea of abolishing a practice only lived in the theoretical world, not in the real world. Because in the real world, when we abolish a practice, when we demonize it or criminalize it, it doesn't go away. It just goes underground. And it becomes so much harder to see, and therefore so much harder to affect change. And this is something that we see time and time again across many different issues. And so instead, you have to really understand how to work within a system. You have to learn that this is far more complex than a single issue. It's something that we see, in fact, again and again in conservation, and something that I've learned from my dear friend, Dr. Alex. It's that if you want to be a conservationist, if you want to save the snow leopard or the lemur or the California condor, you don't just look at the species. You look at all of the things that the species depends on. You look at weather patterns, you look at food chains, you look at mating rituals, you look at environments. Does the species have a safe place to sleep? Does it have everything that it needs? And so if you want to save a species, that's what you do. But the same thing applies if you want to eradicate a species. You have to look at the many different parts of things that exist, and you have to understand the system. And so, I think that if we want to save things, if we want to end the practices of artisanal small-scale mining or child labor, we can't just look at the thing right in front of us. We have to go broader. We have to look bigger. We must say, why is this happening? What are the root causes? What does this depend on? And what depends on this? And those are the places that we have to put our intention and the things that we have to start to look at collectively and address. Because ASM is not the root or the trunk or the branches, it is the leaves. It is the outputs and the outcomes of many, many systems that are broken. And now we all have the privilege to flip those systems on their heads. And to flip things on their head, we've heard the word innovation. We've heard it 9 times so far in the last hour. And I'm sure all of you have heard it 10, 20, 30, 100 times in the last week or month or year, because it is the hot word, it is the buzzword right now. Innovation is this thing in the business world and technology world, it's like quinoa to the culinary world. Like, it's been around forever, guys, but we're putting it on everything right now. And to me, that's fine, because innovation is critical, it's really important. But what the challenge is that we've been taught that innovation is glamorous, that it's sexy, that it shows up and is this stroke of lightning, that it comes through the door and it looks something like this sort of like je ne sais quoi innovation, right? And that's kind of true. But if anything, the presentations that we've heard so far today and the things that we know from people that we consider to be great innovators is that actually those people are more change makers than they are innovators, because they show up every damn day, even when it's hard, even when it's ugly, even when, quite honestly, it looks something like, oh, no, not that. Well, that, hard and ugly, but where is she? Hold on. There, it looks like that. Innovation looks like that. It's not this glamazon, 6-foot-tall blonde that walks in. It's rough, it's real, it's hard. It means showing up and not giving up, even when you want to. And I think so often in the world of science and business and technology, and medicine and all of these fields, we want to celebrate the fireworks. We want to celebrate the moments. But we can't lose sight of all of the pieces that go into those moments, all of the days that Greta sat outside of her school completely unnoticed. We don't talk about that. We talk about the now. And in this work, if we don't talk about the vulnerabilities and the hard moments, then a whole lot of people get discouraged and a whole lot of people get distracted. And so heropreneurs, we want to be heroes, we want to be heropreneurs, that's awesome. But not unless we also talk about the vulnerabilities and the challenges that come with solving something massive like ASM. The last thing I really quickly want to talk about is sort of this idea of that it takes all of us, right? So there's a concept, well, I'm not a scientist, I am a total geek, and earned my geekness when I went to economics camp, not once, but twice in high school. And in economics camp, I learned of this theory called insider-outsider theory, and it really applies to labor economics. But in our world today, we can legitimately see it everywhere. It's the concept that all of us in this room and in the world are insiders some places. It means that we have insider status, we have access, we have power, we have information. And that all of us are outsiders somewhere. where we have perspective and we have experience. And in change making, in innovation, we need both. We absolutely have to start to apply perspective to power and power to perspective, right? Because the slide that I preemptively showed you is a slide of a room of white men in power signing a bill about women's reproductive health care, right? So this is the classic example of power without perspective. Each of you in this room has power or has perspective on this issue of ASM. And I implore you, if you have power, to find the people with perspective, to bring them in, to bring them along, to let them come to the table. And if you have perspective and no power, then I urge you to knock on doors and pick up phones and tweet back and do all the things until you break down those doors, until you get in those rooms. Because without both, we're never going to solve this challenge. And let's just also be clear that insiders' time is running out because we've got people like Greta and my 3-year-old daughter who are coming for the traditional power holders, right? So like, let's let them in. Let's make this as easy as possible. Outsiders, women, and people of color and immigrants are going to be the ones that save us. They are going to be the ones that solve the most complex problems that we find ourselves in right now. So let's find them, let's include them, let's bring them to the table, and let's fund them now. Because we have no more time to waste. The time was yesterday, the time is up. So I urge you to show people why they should care, to help them be innovative and creative and stick to it even when it's hard, to share your power, to share your perspective, and to dare mighty things along with all of us. Thank you.